make sure that he is on issue by him. Just to give you a little about the big data, how is the market trend? This is maybe just a little older, more bigger than these. Every 6 months is keep changing, and a lot of things are evaluation. And primarily, it's in the different sectors. Healthcare, manufacturing. These are two prime things. Of course, these days, all social media and web properties. Those are the main, and retail also is becoming a big thing for big data solutions. So this is some of the numbers in terms of how much is the business that they're expecting in this area. And really talk about how this actually we have a lot of solutions that we built last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, running the things, and lots of data is available. And now all of a sudden, why this whole big data concept or the evaluation is coming? Just some of the things in the previous era, we have used a lot of reporting systems, a lot of business analytics systems, data warehouse systems. So we built all those things we are using. But now the trend has changed. Okay, those are like a predefined kind of reporting technologies which you are building. Canned reports are available, you just do on the existing data. You are not really doing any analysis on that data. So the evolution is from reporting into the analytics. And that analytics is more in terms of predict analysis and exploring that change. Instead of just looking at whatever the data you have. And of course, some data to big data. That's a simple statement, but the implementation is very, we really talk about any big data solutioning. And what are the typical things that you really see in a big data solution? It's not like just normal data, your applications, your transactional data, and that is already there, exists in your systems. But what's the main difference which comprises of the big data solution? So if you really see lots of things like your non-structured, unstructured data, that is where your big data really comes into picture. Whether your videos, images, or social media, social logs, or machine-generated data, or any of the application-generated logs, documents, whatnot, including the structured data, combined together is what is the data that you use to make your analysis, your predicts, your explores, or whatever you want to do on that. So that whole thing comprises is the big data solution. So that's how traditionally you have lots of databases that you use in your applications. You build your transactional data sitting there, and you're build some reports on top of it. But now that is the old tradition. Now with the latest thing, the main thing is, okay, you have lots of other data also. Why don't you use that to really do your complete analysis? So that's where your machine-generated data or social data or any of the video data comes into picture. Of course, the primary transaction data is already there. And some of the things that we really see is, first question I asked is how many people have really started doing this? Hadoop or any big data implementations. This is one of the Gartner report. Says Fortune 500 companies, they started the projects in 2012. So this is actually a old data. At the end of 2012, they are starting their pilot project. But I know there are people who are already deployed into the productions. No? So people like Yahoo or Facebook, they have done some work and they deployed. They're using one or the other version of the Hadoop solutions. And primarily, the main use cases that they really see here is web recommendations, or market campaign analysis, or fraud detection, or research and development, and of course to do the modeling and any of those. So those are the typical use cases that you really see, because you have lots of data which is sitting there, all your web, social media data, your videos or images or or tweets or your even the machine generated data along with your business transactional data. So you really do a lot of trend on top of it. So that is the primary intent of this whole big data. Okay, what it really makes sense for a big data is that there are 3 to 4 typical or characteristics that it really comes. One is the volume. How much is data size? That really say whether it's a big data solution or a non-normal kind of solution. And the velocity of the data which you are getting, how fast you are getting this data. Are you getting this over the next 5 years, or are you getting in the next 1 month? So that is again one more factor that really tells, classify whether it's really a big data problem or not. And of course, the variety of data that we are talking about, and the variability, the changes, how frequently it changes. We have the static data. Then it's static data. It's not really a big data problem. But if it keeps on changing the data and you are getting new and new sets of data, then you really see that yes, there is a need for a big data solution. So that's a little bit a background about the market and the evaluation of the whole big data solution. And now going a little deep into the Hadoop. I know why I've taken Hadoop is a general implementation of the big data algorithm, and of course a lot of advantages, disadvantages depends on what kind of Hadoop implementation that you are in the previous session. Lynn talked about whether it's a Hortonworks or Cloudera or anything. So it depends on what implementation that you are really going to use. But generally, when you talk about Hadoop, there's some of the good advantages in terms of scalability. Scalability is an important aspect when you really handle a data solution, because you're getting volume of data and the speed at which it is coming. So that's always important. So today you have planned for, say, let's say 20 terabytes of data, and tomorrow you may be within a month you expect it to go 20%, 30%. Then you should be able to accommodate, and probably over in a year it goes to the petabytes. So you should have a capacity of a system that it should be able to handle and grow accordingly. So that's what is called a scale-out architecture. So your system, your solution that you are building should be able to handle and for the future needs should be able to scale up. So Hadoop really gives good solutioning in that area. And of course, another important thing is, okay, do you want to buy a bigger hardware giant machines, or you wanted to run with a normal commodity type hardware. So that's again a bigger thing. So you don't know tomorrow, after 1 month you may need it, but today you need only 10 machines, 10 nodes. You should be able to serve your purpose, and you should be able to keep later for the future need. So that's again another important aspect you need to consider. And of course, data replication and self-healing, as in if there is some issue with the system, then it should be able to correct it and bring it up automatically. So that kind of things. And of course, the processing, the batch processing, which is primarily MapReduce kind of thing. There are different implementations of that, whether it's Apache Drill or Cloudera, Impala, or any of those. So those are some of the important aspects that you really need to consider when you're building a solution in terms of a big data solution. And this is actually a typical use case that we have seen in the market. Particularly, this is actually a retail use case where they're using the MySQL as well as the Hadoop as into their whole solution. So how is this fit? There's all their, let's see, all their user data or all the recommendations or all the social media data is also coming, and all that transactional data is sitting in their database in the MySQL. So they have the complete OLTP application, asset compliance data is built into the system, and they were using from a long time. And now they started collecting a lot of social media data. So this is where integrating this data, the OLTP data, with all their social media data is, of course, your weblogs, pages viewed, comments, blah blah blah, all the telephony, telesales, all those data is also sitting, and the whole data is now coming into the Hadoop system. So that's the complete architecture that was built, and the idea here is they are previously using MySQL. They continue to use MySQL for their OLTP, and then now they introduced the big Hadoop solution, where they are getting all the social media data and web logs, mission logs, and even feeds, tweets, and everything are coming directly in non-structured data, I can say, into the Hadoop system. And also they are bringing all the transactional data. The customer profile is there, customer transactions are there, all their purchases, everything is also coming into the Hadoop. So you have, they brought everything into one place, and then now all the data is available for you to do your complete analysis, your predicate analysis, or your explore, or business results, trending, everything you can do in Hadoop. And then some of the data, once you are done with your final analysis, probably you might want to build some reports out of it. So for that, there are different ways people are doing. Might be sending some of the data back into the MySQL for their internal managerial decisions or reporting purpose. And of course, they can run some ad hoc reporting there in the Hadoop itself. So this is one of the use case in the retail. And when you really wanted to build that whole kind of use case, if you really see that, it's a four types of four quarters of the life cycle. If you really see that, the life cycle is generally starts at the acquire phase. This is the phase that we are in currently. Actually, we really talk. So today's environment in the industry, the people already built all the data. They have the OLTP systems which they built and they're running, and that is what is called acquire phase. This phase is already in the system. Now this is the phase people are now moving into, the organized phase. That means all the OLTP is sitting there now, bringing that data along with all the other kinds of unstructured data, bringing the whole thing and organize that in this phase. And of course, once you have all the data, then you analyze and then decide phase for the results. Really see how I can map that into the Hadoop MySQL environment, all those four phases. So of course, the acquire phase is already built, and even people who are building their OLTP systems now using the MySQL, it's easy to use, very robust in terms of handling the performance and capabilities, and bringing that, integrating that with the Hadoop using different technologies. That's my intent of my primary talk. How I can build the integrate between MySQL and Hadoop. I will be going more detailed into the architecture of MySQL Applier. That's another product that we are working on, and integrating directly into the Hadoop. There are ways we can do that. And once the data is now brought into the Hadoop, and now you make the analysis of that. You have lots of tools that are coming up as part of the implementations, Hadoop implementations, and also some of the data probably you have done most of the analysis here. Some data you may wanted to bring it back to your final BA solutions phase, where your MySQL is already running, or you wanted to build some reports specifically for management consumption. So we really see that this is how the whole life cycle starts, from acquire to organize, analyze, and back to the decide phase. And what is the interest for MySQL in this area? MySQL is already there, people are using, they're building the solutions, they continue to use that. But the main idea here is this is one of the leading Hadoop vendor published, saying that 50% of the users who are really planning to build their Hadoop solutions, they are already using MySQL for their systems. So that's where we were interested to see how we can build the integration between MySQL and Hadoop. And then we, along with Oracle, the MySQL team started this project where the MySQL applier, which is a real-time integration between MySQL and Hadoop. Going into some of the more detail into those phases. Yeah, sure.
What exactly integration? Are they getting the data from MySQL from Hadoop to MySQL?
Okay, so the data from MySQL into Hadoop. Yes, all the transactional data is already there in the MySQL. So you are running a lot of applications sitting there. Okay, and that's actually a part of the data for your big data solution. Okay, so that's your crucial data, and combine that with your social media data is where your analysis starts. So now what you are doing is the data from the MySQL should be or can be imported into the Hadoop system, and then merge that with your social media data. So if you really see my,
isn't that there's a tool for that already called Scoop?
sorry.
Isn't that there's a tool for that?
Yes,
Doing
Scoop
that?
is there. Yeah, Scoop is a batch point. So I'm going to talk about a Scoop too. Okay, Scoop is a batch process. It is not a real-time integration. So the applier and Scoop complement each other. So and they work with each other very very closely. Definitely, Scoop is one of the ways where if you really see my Scoop is mentioned as part of it. So Scoop is a batch-oriented integration between MySQL, and of course Scoop works for different databases, and they specifically built a Scoop version for MySQL. It's got fast path driver. So because they have realized that a lot of customers are using MySQL and Hadoop. So definitely. So for your question, so from MySQL, bringing all the data into the Hadoop, where you're getting data from different sources. Okay, so you have social media data, you have transactional data from MySQL database, and that's available for you to do all your analysis. Okay, and how do you do that? Integration is we will go more detail into the architecture of that. And in the acquire phase, now a lot of systems are already built, and some data is already sitting in MySQL, or probably people wants to load a lot of bulk data loads also at the same time, or they want to do a lot of faster access methods. So that's where we started doing in terms of working on a NoSQL solutioning. So because that's one of the latest or emerging trends in terms of accessing the data much faster than any other. So NoSQL is again a solution that we work, and I will go a little bit architecture of the NoSQL also. Primarily, the products that involved in the acquire phase are MySQL database or a MySQL cluster. So MySQL cluster is again a different product in the MySQL portfolio. It is a high available in-memory database. It's a clustered database. So you have it's a true 5 nines auto-sharded in-memory complete throughput database. So what is the idea for this NoSQL? Here, our concept is it's a key value pair. Anywhere you talk about any NoSQL, we want to talk about an ID and the data. That's always the NoSQL concept. Definitely we agree on that. At the same time, on that data, we wanted to provide a full asset compliance to that data. Make sure that it is fully transactional. And on the same data set, you should be able to run best of the both worlds of the SQL and NoSQL. So that means you have a data set is available. And on that data set, if you wanted to run a SQL query, you wanted to build a complex query, a relational query, joining tables, then you should be able to do it. At the same time, on the same data set, I want to do a faster load of the data or faster retrieval of the data as a key value pair, then you should be able to do it. So those are the three primary goals which we have considered and developed the NoSQL API. And of course, this is some of the things why we really need to have the.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Question. So your interface can work with the NoSQL or Cassandra, right?
No, it's a MySQL.
MySQL, but you mentioned NoSQL there.
Yes,
So can you work with the NoSQL and Cassandra?
not with the Cassandra. So MySQL has its own NoSQL capabilities.
Capability.
Yes.
But its more popular NoSQL database is MongoDB and Cassandra, and that's the top two right now.
Not necessarily. Those are some. There are different NoSQL solutions are there. In the market.
So you are talking about Oracle NoSQL solution,
No, I'm
right?
talking about MySQL NoSQL.
MySQL.
That's correct.
All right.
So MySQL has your InnoDB storage engine.
Mhm.
You have the data sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
and on the same data, if you wanted to run a NoSQL capabilities,
Mhm.
so the InnoDB storage engine that we have in MySQL
Mhm.
is now capable of handling both SQL and NoSQL features.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so I will go through a little more deeper architecture on the NoSQL plugin.
Okay.
Just hang on to a couple
Thank
of
you.
slides.
Thank you.
Okay. So the main idea of having the MySQL that acquiring data in the MySQL is, of course, it's definitely real-time analytics for all your transactional data. And some of the examples is the fraud detection built by PayPal using MySQL cluster. This is and I think they have a lot of different solutions, but all the complete PayPal fraud detection is completely running on MySQL cluster in the geographically interpreted. So the main idea is you wanted to have the asset compliance, you wanted a fully transactional, security and everything in place in that.
And currently, PayPal is using NoSQL or MySQL interface?
They're using MySQL interface.
MySQL.
Yeah, they use MySQL cluster. So MySQL cluster has both the things. They access some data through NoSQL, but they more predominantly use the SQL layer. Yeah. And how our architecture for the NoSQL is using Memcache API. So most people who built a lot of web applications wanted to have faster access for some of the data. They started using the Memcache protocol. So it's a general open source protocol that we have. Now what we did is, the previous scenarios in the old days, they built the MySQL, and between your application layer and database, they used to keep the Memcache layer. Now we brought that into the MySQL itself, so that as part of the key value pair, you can define your smaller data sets and then run the query. So that if you really see the architecture here, so this is the MySQL, and you used to have the MySQL, Memcache as a layer to do a faster data access. So that means your user profile or authentications or security or any of those some of the data which you need all the time, most frequently used data, they always used to keep in the Memcache so that you can do a faster data access. And the problem with that kind of architecture is you're keeping the data two times, which is the duplicates. Okay, you're storing finally into the database as well as you're also keeping in the Memcache. And of course, it's not the Memcache. It is not a persistent data. So to avoid such kind of issues, what we did is we brought that into the InnoDB itself. That some of the functions that are provided by the Memcache are brought into the InnoDB, and built an API to interface your Memcache directly. So some of the things which are primarily are index on the key column, asset compliance, and you definitely don't want to do the idea of NoSQL is you wanted to avoid the sequence. You wanted to avoid the overhead of queries, the parsing, and all those things. So those are the things which you can bypass now with this architecture. Let me show you the architecture of how the Memcache API really works. So if you see here, this is your application layer. And your normal scenario is you are coming through MySQL optimizer, handler, and retrieving the data from the InnoDB storage engine. For the people who is not aware of InnoDB is one of the storage engine within the MySQL, and MySQL is the one of the open source database where you have a pluggable storage engine architecture. You can use any of the storage engines. If you want a lot of transactional data, you have InnoDB is the storage engine. If you want to do a lot of reporting purpose, you have MyISAM storage engine. Or if you want to do some compression or data compression, then you have archival data engine. So you have a plug and play kind of storage engine architecture in the MySQL. So this left side part is a normal MySQL RDBMS feature. But now what we brought into the system is this right side. See this here. You have a Memcache plugin interfacing directly with through InnoDB API and accessing or reaching the InnoDB data. That means when you wanted to store a data, you define a key value pair and then call those Memcache functions like get, set, put. Those are the Memcache functions which you will be using. And you use those functions, call those functions, those will talk to the InnoDB API and dump the data into the InnoDB storage engine. Okay. Once the data is already reached the InnoDB storage engine, that means it has its own format. So now you can run both patterns. You can access that same data through a SQL. You write some select star from table 1, table 2, join, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, you can also retrieve the data through the Memcache. Say like get for a key value pair. What is the value for that? So on the same data, you are getting both functionalities. I'm sure for some requirements, some use cases definitely need some complex queries to be built to really combine the data from different tables and then build a report. For some scenarios, you want it faster, quick. You want more data to be retrieved faster or more data to be loaded faster. So in that situation, you can use this architecture.
I have a question here.
Sure.
So both the possibilities are there for same data, or it's for separate data, for one data?
Same data.
Same data.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can store one way and access other way.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that is the main idea of bringing the NoSQL API onto the InnoDB storage engine. So I can build a different path itself, different way on a different setup. But thing is, you are not really getting ACID compliance there. You cannot do any complex queries on that. But here, the best of the both scenarios are you're bringing onto the same data. So the main idea is you wanted to just load a terabyte of data quickly. Okay. Later probably on subset of the data you wanted to run some complex queries. So use the NoSQL API, get all the data into the system. You have the data is now available. A part of the data you can you just taking only 2 tables. You want to do some query out of it, and then combine that, build some complex queries. So that's the idea of that, right?
But how do you structure data from non-structured data? How do you handle the structure?
Key value pair.
Only key value.
Key value.
So what, from MySQL world I see a two fields table, a
Yeah.
column table. That's
That's
all I see.
Yeah,
Which version of MySQL are we speaking about?
5.6.
5.6.
Absolutely.
5.6 onward.
5.6 onwards. This is the version that the API, NoSQL API was released in 5.6.10. That's in I think February 2013. Yeah, it's already GA and people started in the production. I think Facebook is essentially using the NoSQL API for all their MySQL deployments. So the same architecture. So the idea here is bringing that Memcache engine, the library that we are using, InnoDB as well. So as part of the MySQL, if you install MySQL 5.6, so there will be a Memcache library is part of the installation. So if you really wanted to use those features, what you just have to do is you enable that .so file. So it's called enabling a Memcache API. So we bought it as an API just in case if you really don't want to use it. So you just sit there. It will not be enabled so that it will not occupy your any other resources. a little more in terms of the components, memcached and local cache, that's an option. And this way, if you see the handler API, which is already existing in the MySQL 5.6. And okay, what is the advantage of using the NoSQL compared to the SQL? So this is one of the benchmark that we perform. If you really see that on the same data set, the right skills in terms of when your connections are going, so there's huge difference in these memcache versus SQL operations. So it's pretty much 9 times faster when you do a set versus insert. And the same is also available. Actually, we started this NoSQL in MySQL cluster. So MySQL cluster is our carrier grade edition, high available solution, where we have all the data is distributed across different data nodes within the NDB. NDB is our storage engine for the MySQL cluster, and it has different protocols through which you can operate the data. This is we're talking about C++ or in Memcache or JavaScript or Node.js or MySQL to SQL layer or any of those. So I think today morning, my other colleague has given another talk on Node.js. So that's another thing that we released as part of the cluster 7.3. And some of the benchmarks primarily on the cluster, which 1.2 billion updates per minute. This product generally we recommend using when you really need a high available, high throughput applications. Moving on to the main aspect of this whole integration between MySQL and Hadoop, there are 2 things that we really see. One is Apache Scoop. Definitely, that's the first one actually. Apache Copland project which released, and they released for different databases, and they released the special connector or fast path integration for MySQL. And as part of MySQL link, we are working on the Hadoop application. I will spend slides on both architectures. Definitely, both are good, and both serves different purposes. So, the Scoop is one of the Apache's top-line project, and it's a initially they started with integration from Hadoop to the all external databases. So that's how they started. And then when they realized that the lot of people are using for MySQL, they released the fast path connector for MySQL. And this is a batch mode. So this is not something that you can do on. It's like a kind of an initial loads you can do it, and then all the changes you have to do it once in a day kind of solution. So it's more for a batch oriented programs. And how it really works? Yeah. So you have your HDFS cluster, you have 4-node cluster which is sitting there, all your MapReduce jobs, and the data is sitting in MySQL or Oracle or SQL Server or anything. So in case it's a MySQL database. What this Scoop import, Scoop has the process called import process. The Scoop import process first gathers your metadata and then submits a MapReduce job. This job finally retrieves the data. If in the case of MySQL, it uses MySQL dump. So internally uses some of the MySQL APIs to retrieve the data and import into the HDFS file system. The corresponding creates those text files and inserts the data into the HDFS file system. That's how the Scoop works. So as there are limitations in terms of it's a batch process, you are not really able to see the trending in a real-time fashion. So then we realize that okay, there is something which needs to import all your transactions, all your sales orders, all your sales trend into the Hadoop so that they can do the real-time trending and then make their any of the business analysis or any of the sales trends, they need a real-time event streaming that are happening in their OLTP systems. So that's how the Hadoop applier works. So how it really works, what the architecture here is, MySQL has a concept called bin log. You know, if anybody uses MySQL.
Yeah.
So it's a part of the MySQL replication process. That's one of the native process that was built years back, and the most of the MySQL deployment uses that as their scale-out architecture, having a master and multiple slaves and hundreds of slaves for their scale-out architecture. So you know that is already existing concept. So the applier is going to use that to get that real-time event stream, because that's a real-time scenario. How is that going to work here? So if you see here, your MySQL is there and your Hadoop. So this is on MySQL bin log. So when you enable your MySQL replication enabled, then you start getting your MySQL bin logs are getting filled with the changes that you are making, whether it's a delete or insert or update. And the Hadoop applier component, what it does is it reads those bin logs and then passes that and writes into the HDFS file system. So the steps basically what this it receives the events from the bin log API, writes the changes into the Hadoop file system. That's the architecture. And of course, once you have that data is available, then you have things like Hive to really map that with the tables, and you have HQL or HQL query language to retrieve the data in the file system. Really, we use the libHDFS. That's a kind of protocol that we use. It's part of the most of the HDFS distributions will have this HDFS libHDFS. So the binlog API data will be decoded into that, and then a player will apply that into the. And when you're applying, the main key thing here is here you have timestamp. That's an important aspect there. So when it creates the table, also on the other side, you have your primary key, and prior to the primary key, you will have always the timestamp to really identify the latest data, because that's how in Hadoop it's only always it creates a new file kind of thing. It's not like you don't have updates or deletes kind of. The implementation basically we just mentioned. That's the row from the master. Once the replication has happened, that bin log is made an entry, and that bin log. The idea here is you have different ways you can use that bin log. If you wanted to build a complete search engine, you can use that bin log. If you want to integrate with HDFS, you can integrate with HDFS. Or you wanted to set up some slaves, you can set up the slaves for the bin log. So that's the general kind of use cases that we see in the HDFS. And then once the applier decodes the data and writes it onto the HDFS. So you see the comparison of an SQL query with a Hive QL. So if you see here a table tree with int I, here you see timestamp int and then a record. So the row formatting will be stored as text files. So because that's how HDFS distinguish the timestamp. A little bit more in details, if you really see a mapping between MySQL and HDFS. So here you have table 1 database and table 1. So you have under the table you have so many columns and then data types. And on the HDFS side, it's more file structure. So you have the bottom line, it's a files. Okay, Hive is basically you are creating a layer for doing the queries on those files. So at the bottom is it's a table, what we call it, the data file 1, and the file has entries for all those with timestamps. timestamp 1, timestamp 2 like that. That's how the relation, so once you send the data from any structured query language into the HDFS, that's how the mapping will be done and writing onto the HDFS. Whether you use Scoop or you use Applier, anything, this is how the mapping will be done. A simple example that is talking about, you really see an insert statement, how it's getting converted on the other side. And this timestamp is always comes from the binary log, because that's the timestamp that record has created. So that's very important parameter for the record. The record identity is always the timestamp.
In my index run on
What's that?
to retrieve, because I need to pay a cost because I have another, because I can have two, let's say two value primary key, let's say is 2356. I can have two. So what's the cost of this having many tables when I run a query?
So that depends on is it distributed in one node or multiple nodes in the cluster.
So I need to build.
You need to plan accordingly. So always HDFS retrieval is not a real time. Okay, most of the time why you're storing in HDFS is just store the data, all the data, and then run some batch processing to retrieve all the data. It's not a real time system, all those any of the Hadoop systems. So most of the time it will be you dump all the data and create the background process, your map reduce jobs. You submit the job, let the data comes out. So if the data is distributed in 4 nodes, then it takes time to consolidate all the data and comes out. So that's the relation. That's the difference between any relational data versus your file system.
And this connector does not, if I'm interested in the latest version, will it consolidate the
No.
data?
No, because that's a part of the HDFS internal architecture. How to distribute that data within their nodes.
So when performance get too bad, I just scratch everything and I make another scooping for fresh. If I'm not interested in something old, how
No.
do you see? Because if I run this thing for a long time, my data explode, right? Or I have data expiry policy.
So the scoop process is basically a batch background process. So this is an import process that you are doing. At the same time, if you run trying to query on the same data, then you may not get the full results, isn't it? Because you're just trying to import all the data as part of the initial setup, and Applier does the apply only changes. So those should be minimal. It may not be huge changes unless you have terabyte data, and then out of which half a terabyte you are making changes every day or every minute. Then your Applier will also be choked. But if that is delta will be less, then definitely your Applier will be much faster. And right now the Applier is built for all inserts. Okay, when there are any insert recorded into the MySQL, then it will be recorded. But other things, updates and deletes, those are really a complicated concept in the HDFS, because you don't have something called delete concept there. Your updates are creating a new file there. You're not really updating the existing record. It's always append. So those and deletes, there is no nothing called deletes there. So so those are the two things we are still working on it. So that's why I mentioned very clearly to me. So these are the two things that we've actually started working, but it is not yet ready in terms of the things to get ready. There are some blogs that our engineering team has developed in terms of how they're planning to build that approach for updates and deletes. And of course, analyzing the big data. There are different people as different market, and I personally work a little bit on the Cloudera, but I know a little bit of Hive also. But harder ones I have now done Mahout, MapRover, OZ. I know about those words. That's all. So I don't know if you guys have any insights on how these analysis tools are really working in the big data solutions. Anybody has any comment? Anybody worked on any of those tools? Once your data is in the Hadoop and you did all your analysis and everything, there are some of those components, some of the data probably you wanted to get back to your MySQL and see for your existing reporting or any of the data warehouse systems. So that's where again you use the export of the data from Hadoop systems into the MySQL. So then here I don't have an apply because apply is only from the MySQL into the Hadoop. But in the reverse always it's a batch processing, you have to use the scoop on it. So the scoop export is again the similar concept. It just gathers metadata and then submits a map job and gets all the data into the MySQL. And of course, on the MySQL side, people used Panther, Talent, Jaspersoft for a lot of their reports. This is one of the typical use cases that we've seen with MySQL and Hadoop. Again, using MySQL cluster for a lot of high availability systems, and for all the content management and everything is in the MySQL. And of course, the Hadoop is primarily used in terms of for the big data solution. And you import the data using the scoop as well, and then apply the real-time data here. Because here you see all your user profiles are mostly it's kind of static, so you may not change on the time all your user details. So that's a one-time activity, and then you apply your OLTP transactional data through your applier, get the things into the analytics and make your analysis, use your Hadoop, your Haribo, and do analytics. And then some of the data probably you are bringing it back to your OLTP systems. And of course, your content management data is residing in your master slave architecture. And as part of the MySQL has two versions, which is to give idea. As it's an open source product, MySQL has the open source version, and also it has an enterprise version, primarily where people are running production instances, where we recommend using the enterprise tools. So the binaries for the MySQL server is always the same, and we have a lot of additional tools that MySQL enterprise comes in terms of the monitoring, backups, and authentication, auditing, and security, and all those